You might think a BMW is a good car to buy. Yes, they are packed full of modern technology, but that's the reason I tell people not to buy these BMWs. Because under the hood are layers and layers of technology. And as you can see, the hood struts don't even work anymore. Those are broken. So we'll get our plastic stick out. Yeah. Old technology for new technology. Let's take this BMW as an example, and a pretty much a sterling example of the high technology and the problems they have. This is a 2008 335i. It has all the bells and whistles. It's a straight 6-cylinder engine, but it puts out 300 horsepower using technology. It's an inline-6 common old design. It has 2 turbochargers on it to make it have power. And if they go bad, and bad they do, the turbochargers are over $3,000 a piece, over $2,000 labor, so you're looking at over $8 grand if they go bad. Now, the original owner of this car paid $45,000 up for this thing, and my customer bought it for $13,500, and it had like 40,000 miles on it. So you think, oh, what a deal. Well, the price alone tells you it's not a deal. Before he met me, he said, Scotty, I thought I was getting a deal, but then every time I take it in, it's $1,000 for this, $2,000 for that. Now, yes, they are maintenance-heavy vehicles. They cost a lot of money to maintain. Anybody who actually knows how to work on these has to have some extremely sophisticated equipment that costs a ton of money. And as far as I'm concerned, a lot of it has to do with the overuse of plastics in these things. One of the first companies to use plastic for just about everything. With these BMWs, it doesn't matter the mileage, age destroys the plastics. Heat of the engine under the hood, the stuff cracks and comes apart. If you ever have to work on one of these when it gets to be older, this one's 12 years old now, you got to be really careful working around the engine, because you can easily start snapping off plastic parts. They're so brittle. And then when you find these little plastic parts cost $300, $500, some of them well over $1,000 when you include labor, because you got to take half the car apart to get to them. These things are notorious for getting oil leaks around the oil filter. You might think, oh, no big deal, they're just gaskets in there. Well, some of these things, it's over $1,000 labor taking all the crap off to get to the stupid gasket. Now, in the case of this particular one, it's here because it's not shifting right. Now, I have equipment for this stuff, and as you can see, we're now in the transmission. You can check variables, shifting, you can check solenoids, you can see what the adaptation values are, even find all the code numbers so you can look it up if perhaps there's a recall for your particular vehicle. Most guys that have this equipment, they're paying a ton for the stuff. You're going to pay a ton to have your car worked on. And a lot of guys won't even touch it. And they'll say, take it to the dealer. And you know what they charge at the dealer. Now, in this case, I did a lot of testing. Drove it around. As you can see, there's a lot of data that needs to be looked at while the car's being driven. I was able to do a bunch of actuation tests to see if the solenoid valves are working right and what kind of data's in it. And unfortunately, in the case of this one, there were no error codes for the transmission. The data was all relatively normal. So I thought, well, I know how these things are. I took a sample of the transmission fluid. Now, it's a sealed transmission, so even that was a pain in the butt. There's no dipstick. I had to go under, open up some stuff and take a sample. And I took it to a good friend of mine who analyzes oil. He said that there was too much metal in the oil, meaning parts of the transmission were starting to wear out. It hasn't yet tripped any codes, and the adaptations so far are normal for a 12-year-old BMW. But this tells me transmission's starting to wear out. Oil analysis is a great tool for seeing what kind of a shape a vehicle is in. Both engine, transmission, differential, whatever. When it's analyzed by somebody who knows what they're talking about, they're going to find it out, and you can know ahead of time. It's a good predictor. So in this case, the occasional missed shift and stuff, hey, that's a sign of internal wear. When I checked those solenoids driving around, would activate them, they were all working, and there weren't any codes for any of them going bad. It's starting to wear out. Now, for this particular one, it's 12 years old, BMW offers what they call a fully remanufactured factory transmission. It's about $6,500. And with labor, at least at the BMW dealer, that's pretty close to what the 2 turbos cost to go. $7,000 something. You buy a beautiful looking car like this used, you are playing with dynamite. You never know what's going to blow and when it's going to go. Yes, the Germans put in interesting technology. These lower profile tires, they really handle well, but being lower profile, guess what? In the city, these things are destroyed. The rims get destroyed. All that stuff costs a small fortune when it goes out. Now that technology is fine at the racetrack because racetracks are pretty smooth. They go really fast, they make them well, they're smooth. They don't have giant potholes in them, curbs that you're gonna smash into. And this particular model being a beautiful convertible, there are convertible modes. There's a module for the convertible top, fault codes. You can even read the data stream of the convertible system. We are talking uber rocket science technology, even on a convertible top system for this thing. Now, maybe you just love the technology of one of these things. If you really love it and have to have it, take Scotty's advice. Lease one. Don't buy it. If you feel you can afford the lease payments, you're not going to have to repair the thing. You have to worry about all that stuff. Something breaks. They generally don't break that fast. If you look at their insanely low resale value, I mean, this thing was well over $40,000 new, and when it had 40,000 miles, it went for $13,500. There's a reason behind that low resale value. And if you would have bought it new and then sold it to somebody with 40,000 miles and lost 30-something thousand dollars on the deal, you'd have wished, hey, I should have leased that thing. I shouldn't have bought it. Now, I do have to say, I have customers with BMWs that are totally happy with the cars, but most of them are doctors, lawyers. They lease the vehicle under a business scenario where it's pre-tax money, so they don't have to pay tax on some of their salary, or the business itself is leasing it and they're getting the car for free. What do they care? One, the doctors and lawyers have tons of money, and two, it's a business write-off. But if you're counting your pennies and you're thinking about buying one of these things used, my advice is just keep saying to yourself, endless money pit, endless money pit, endless money pit. I had a mechanic friend years ago. Met at an auto parts store one day, and he said, hey, look at this great deal I got on this BMW for one of my customers. He didn't want me to fix it anymore, so he sold it to me at a really good price. Well, the problem with my friend there was he mainly worked on American cars. He didn't know that much about BMWs. I saw him about a year later, and I said, how's that BMW working out for you? He said, that plastic piece of crap, I got rid of it last month. I couldn't stand it anymore. All the plastic stuff kept breaking, the parts cost a fortune. I'll never buy another one of those. And this is a mechanic. Granted, he worked mainly on American cars. He liked the look of a BMW convertible and thought, oh, what a cool car. But in the long run, not so cool. And if you're thinking about getting a diesel BMW here in the United States, realize hardly anybody knows how to work on the things. And of course, the parts cost a small fortune, but they are probably the most complex diesel systems out there. When I get them in here, invariably, after I scan it, tell the customer, well, here's what we're gonna start with. They say, I'm just gonna get rid of the thing. I'm sick of this car anyways. Now, yes, they are beautiful cars, but sometimes beauty can be deceiving. So unless you like expensive, aggravating cars as they age, my advice, stay away from BMWs. Are you going to spend up to $100,000 on a Tesla? Well, I'm certainly not going to. You just put the key down here. To start it, you just have to tap the card and press the brake. A regular stick like a car. The R will make it back up, and as you can see all around, there's my Celica. You get a good view, so you won't run into anything. Whee! No sound. We don't want to hit my grandson's Tundra there. It would probably do serious damage to this electric car. Certainly it's quiet. Give it a little gas. Away it goes. They do handle really well. These actually handle kind of like a Formula One race car. I've driven them, and they have a really nice cornering setup. But just like a Formula One race car, you take your foot off the gas, look, the car stops itself without even touching the brake. It's insane how these things are. They have regenerative braking, so you don't have to worry about running into things, but you got to get used to that deceleration. If somebody's tailgating you, don't slow down too fast without touching the brakes. They won't know. Now, they are a lot of fun on twisty roads. There's no arguing that. It's low to the ground, it's a heavy vehicle, and it handles really good. It's very stable. And let's see what the acceleration can do. So we'll come to a stop, and we're going to floor it. Ready, set, go. It has very good acceleration. Realize, this is only a Model 3. This baby's only got like 270 horsepower, even though it's electric power. You can get 1,000 horsepower in the Model X, and that would have blown your mind. I'm kind of disappointed that they didn't bring me a Model X, because it shows the speed much more. This It's okay, but it's nothing compared to the Model X. It does not have that kind of acceleration. If you had a choice picking out a car, do not buy a Model 3. They're not that impressive. They're not that fast. You'd want to get a faster one like a Model X. Or if you had more money, a Model S. If you want speed. And of course, it's got Tesla's driving systems. There's nobody on the road here in the country, so if I go over the lane, you know, it's warning you. Now, I assume the Model X is better, but all Teslas I've tried, they're really nice on a highway, smooth. But when you get to a bumpy road, hey, they don't ride all that well. You feel the bumps on the road, it's not particularly smooth. You hit the bumps, you really feel them and hear them. For supposed quality luxury cars, Teslas just don't ride all that well over bumpy roads. On smooth roads, they're perfect. But on bumpy roads, they don't ride all that well. Okay, we're taking a corner now. Like I say, they handle like a dream. But when I step on it, this is nothing compared to what that Model X would do. This Model 3, you couldn't give it to me. And look at this. I got the AC on low. It's blowing full blast. Baby's putting out lukewarm air. The AC does not impress old Scotty. Look at me. I'm sweating like a pig. Well, actually, pigs don't sweat at all. But I'm really sweating. The AC's on low, full blast, and it's not like we're even sitting still. We're going 40 miles an hour. This AC, thumbs down. Now, personally, I can't get used to going straight and then having to keep cocking my head to the side to see this display. I find it very distracting, especially when you're driving on a highway. You're not looking there, you're looking here. I think it's completely bad design. I think they should have had this over here so you could see at the steering wheel and see what you're going, or a heads-up display. But whatever, over here, to me, that's completely wrong for driving. Look at race cars. What do they have? All the gauges where the guy's looking, not to the right. You gotta get used to these things. You gotta put it in park to stop the car, and when you open the door, it shuts itself off. Take my advice. Do what I do. Go to a dealer. Road test one. See if you like it. Because they give road tests. As long as you have a lot of money, they'll give you a road test. I went to the one in Houston, and they didn't know who I was. I just came in a t-shirt, and they just thought, oh, here's some scraggly guy. And they wouldn't even let me road test one of their cars. Because they're like, oh, well, the young people that worked there, they had like no training. Thought, oh, this guy didn't have any money. Shame on them for treating anybody like that. All right, here we have over $150,000 Mercedes, brand new, and it's had all kinds of problems. Now, this is a V8 bi-turbo, all-wheel drive Mercedes. Nobody does a good job at making Mercedes more than the Germans themselves in Deutschland. Let's look at the door. And what does it say? All right, it says, manufactured in Alabama, Tuscaloosa County. Under contract for Mercedes-Benz, Stuttgart, Germany. So it was made in Alabama. Now, he paid over 150 grand for this car, looked at it in California, had it shipped to the East Coast. Here's what it started out with. You notice the noise when he closed the passenger door. It turns out there was weld spatter here. Sloppy job welding and not buffing. That it wore the paint off here, and he had to argue with them and fight back and forth just to get it fixed correctly. Now, it's got a great sound system, there's no arguing that, but so far, 3 of the speakers were blown and rattling, and he had to get them replaced. A little bit of quality loss there. Listen to all these electronics. It's certainly got electronics up the wazoo, but the most annoying things for him is this.
Interference detection. Active.
The mirror talks to him. It whistles. It was not made correctly, and they said they have no idea when the mirror is going to come in and be able to get one to get rid of the whistling noise. It's a $150,000 car. Now that would annoy the heck out of me. As you can see, this car is loaded with technology. It's absolutely insane, the technology in his cars. Look at LED colors, the speakers, but then again, 3 of the speakers are broken already. Paddle shifters. You can do it electronically. You can fiddle around with all kinds of sensors. The transmission to make it no manual mode. You can turn the traction control off. Now as we open the hood, the owner pointed something out. His windshield squirting fluid's always leaking out because this doesn't fit right. And you may or may not believe this, but he told me they said, well, we could put another one in, but it'll do the same thing because they all do that. This is on a $150,000 car, mind you. This isn't a Yugo. This isn't some cheap little Fiat. This is a $150,000 car. These are tightened so tight, the plastic was cracked. So they had to replace the whole front grille. Let's just say those boys in Alabama who are building them, they don't build them like they do in Deutschland. Now, the engine itself is a marvel of technology, and as you can see, handcrafted. This is extremely complex. It has a mild hybrid system, which now puts out a lot of power. But I'm kind of wondering, hey, this is a new car, and it's had all these problems already. What's going to happen when this thing is 5, 6 years old? If that hybrid system starts breaking down, did you ever take a car to the Mercedes dealer and then just about scream when you see what it's going to cost? Well, with a hybrid, you're going to scream twice as loud. Now, there's no arguing. It's a beast. It's got tremendous brakes, good Pirelli tires on it, aerodynamic, and now he could probably sell it for 20 grand, more than what he paid for it. Maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea to do that, you know? Now, he had some idling problems that they worked on, but he's still not totally satisfied. Let's get my computer and take a look at this thing. But before we do, you can see I got my jacket on. It's getting colder here in New England. Came with summer tires. He told me there's no option for all-season tires. So he had to go get winter tires for it now. So we'll hook up the outscan tool. At least the Germans are logical here. Look, they have it in a nice, easy place to get to. Fight computers with computers. Do intelligent diagnosis. And here we go. We know what it is. Loading the data. This is a fast machine on a fast car. It still takes quite some time to even go through the beginning of the system because there is so much stuff on this car. All that previous stuff was just to load the information. Now it's doing a simple scan. The machine itself knows I've got this connected because it knows there's an analytical machine aboard. The two computers talk to each other. It did the preliminary one, now it's doing another one. There's a lot of stuff that has to be go through. Luckily, they're all green so far. Now realize this vehicle only has 21,000 miles on it. But here we go. Look at the codes. Transmission control module. Communication with the electronic ignition lock has a malfunction. Communication with the steering column module has a malfunction. Communication with one or more color generation and coupling modes on line bus 6 has a malfunction. The message is missing. That's all these colors. That system itself is acting up. Implausible data were received from control unit radar sensors. The instruction counter is not updated. Now the multifunction camera. Communication with electronic ignition lock has a malfunction. Implausible data was received from the head unit. An incorrect signal. The radar signals. The ECO start-stop. This is one of those start-stop systems. This thing's broken down already. More communication faults. The communications for the telematics services has a problem. The audio has a problem. The instrument cluster has a problem. There is a general electrical fault. Well, good luck with all this electronics figuring out where the general electrical fault exists. Perhaps the most amusing part. This active body control is a known recall. He took it back to the dealer and they said they fixed it. Well, let's see. It's got 2 codes. They certainly did not fix it. Get the problem here. You can see the software was supplied by Continental. They're not even doing their own software on this thing. I've never even heard of their software, so obviously it's got problems. There was a recall, he took it in, they said they fixed it, but obviously not, because it's still there. It's still a code there. Now the problem with the Mercedes is they're so complex. Look at this, we're just going into some simple things, and we'll go into something like air conditioning. Look at all the information you have to go through. The line bus, just go into things that you think are simple. It's kind of like following Alice in Wonderland down the rabbit hole. Things are a lot more complex than you think they are. Look, the dealer said they fixed the problem. They didn't even fix it. And this is a known problem. Imagine when it's an unknown problem. No one's ever going to figure out how to fix these things. I met a German mechanic years ago, and he said, Scotty, he says, you know, in Deutschland, they just want to make cars. 4 years, you throw them away and buy a new car. And he said that to me 10 years ago. Today, it's even doubly so. I believe this, bud. They have a thing for perfume atomizer generator you can check. So basically, the Germans have lost their minds with technology, and if you buy one of these and it breaks, you may lose your mind trying to get the stupid thing fixed. I mean, come on, they got these Alabama guys putting it together, and they're not doing such a hot job from all the problems that it had just from the get-go. Imagine when this thing gets to be 5 or 6 years old, and it starts having serious electronic problems. Now I could go on and on and on, But my old friend in Houston, here, Schmidt, he's long gone, he told me over a decade ago, he said, Scotty, even I have been working on these cars for 50 years, and that's all he worked on was Mercedes. He said, I don't know 10% of how this stuff even works anymore. And he had even a fancy one of my machine. He had the actual Mercedes star tester, and he said, I'm not going to go back to class for this. He sold his business to another guy, moved back to Germany. He gave up with it. Now, the owner told me he likes the car, but he doesn't like all the problem it has. And he said he's only going to keep it under warranty. So he's probably going to go out and buy an extended warranty that goes 7 years and 100,000 miles and then get rid of it before then. Now, if you watch any of my videos about warranties, I say they're a bunch of bunk. In this case, no, because his tires were $3,500. You can imagine when this thing goes wonkers, they will have to fix it with a warranty like that. And in a car with all this technology, all this craziness, you gotta have a warranty on it. Let me tell you, this thing is just, it's a mild hybrid on top of it. So, I mean, you're really talking about technology up the wazoo. Now, they used to say, they build them great in Deutschland. Solid. Well, I kind of disagree in this case because the guy was in traffic. 2x5 ladder fell off a truck and he hit it, right? It was $23,000 of damage to this car. This is not built like a tank. 23 grand for hitting a little bitty 2x5 ladder. You know, I had a guy the other day, he came with a Toyota and he had something. And I didn't even know it was wrecked, and it was fixed, and it wasn't that big of a deal. That was twice what he paid for the entire Toyota car, just to fix the damage of a 2x5 ladder that he hit because he couldn't swerve out of the way because there were people on each side. So if you want insane speed in an SUV, and you got $150,000 burning a hole in your pocket, and you don't mind those Alabama boys that are a little bit slack on their quality control, I think I'll buy a house instead. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.